Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle completely into whatever is beneath you. Feel the weight of your shoulders, releasing the weight of your arms, heavy and warm. The weight of your legs, sinking. Take a slow breath in. Hold it gently for just a moment and let it go. Again, breathe in and out. With every breath, the day grows further away. The noise of it, the urgency of it, all of it softening now, dissolving like frost in morning light. There is nothing left to carry tonight, nothing left to solve, nothing left to finish. Just this moment, just this quiet, just this story. Tonight I'm going to take you somewhere far to the north, to a colder, older world than the one we usually visit. A world of ice and fire, of vast dark forests and endless winter nights, where 9 worlds hang upon the branches and roots of a single enormous tree, where the gods are not perfect and shining but weathered and wise, forever paying a price for the knowledge they hold. This is the story of Odin, Allfather, Wanderer, the one-eyed god, and of Yggdrasil, the great world tree that holds the very structure of existence together. Close your eyes. Let your breath slow even further. There is nowhere you need to be tonight. Just drift with me. North, into the cold and the quiet and the old, old dark. In the beginning, before there were 9 worlds, there was only a great emptiness called Ginnungagap, a yawning void between fire and ice. To the south burned Muspelheim, the realm of flame, so hot that no living thing could approach it. To the north lay Niflheim, the realm of ice and mist, so cold that frost crept across everything and never melted. Where the heat of Muspelheim met the cold of Niflheim, in the middle of that great emptiness, something began to happen. The ice began to melt, drop by drop, and from those melting drops, life began to stir. First came Ymir, a giant of frost, vast and ancient, from whose body all the frost giants would eventually be born. Then came a great cow named Audhumla, who fed Ymir with her milk, and who, in licking the salty ice for her own nourishment, slowly uncovered a being trapped within it. A god, frozen in ice for ages, gradually freed lick by patient lick. His name was Buri, and from his line eventually came 3 brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve. These 3 brothers looked at the world as it was, chaotic, formless, ruled only by the ancient giant Ymir and his endless frostborn children. And they decided that something needed to change. They killed Ymir. It was not a small thing. It was not done lightly, but from his enormous body, the 3 brothers built the world. His flesh became the earth. His blood became the seas and rivers, vast and churning. His bones became the mountains, and his teeth the stones and boulders scattered across the land. His skull, lifted high above everything, became the great dome of the sky, and his brains, scattered upward, became the clouds that drift across that sky even now. From the maggots that crawled within Ymir's flesh, the brothers shaped the dwarves, master craftsmen who would dig deep into the new earth and live in its hidden caverns, forging wonders from metal and stone. The world was built, but it needed a structure, a spine, something to hold all the different realms together and keep them from drifting apart into the void. And so, at the very center of everything, there grew Yggdrasil, the world tree, an ash tree of impossible size, its trunk wider than any river, its branches reaching higher than the clouds, its roots driving down into places no living eye has ever fully seen. Let the size of the tree settle into your mind now. something so vast it holds entire worlds in its branches, something ancient and patient and rooted deep. Breathe and rest. Yggdrasil had 3 great roots, and each root reached down into a different realm, each one drawing up something different to sustain the tree. The first root reached into Asgard, the realm of the gods, where it drank from the well of Urd, the well of fate, tended by 3 wise women called the Norns, who wove the threads of destiny for gods and mortals alike. The second root reached into Jotunheim, the land of the giants, where it drank from the well of Mimir, a well of wisdom so deep and so old that anyone who drank from it gained knowledge beyond ordinary understanding. The third root reached into Niflheim, the realm of mist and cold, where it drank from a spring called Virgelmir, the bubbling source from which all the rivers of the 9 worlds eventually flow. Upon the branches of Yggdrasil and within its shelter, the 9 worlds existed side by side. Asgard, home of the Aesir gods, golden and shining, where Odin ruled from his great hall. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir, a gentler tribe of gods associated with fertility and the earth. Alfheim, realm of the light elves, beautiful and luminous. Midgard, the realm of humans, the world we would recognize, encircled by a vast ocean. Jotunheim, the rugged mountainous home of the giants, old enemies and sometimes uneasy kin of the gods. Svartalfheim, the underground realm of the dwarves, full of forges and tunnels and the sound of hammers striking metal in the dark. Nidavellir, sometimes spoken of as a separate realm of craftsmen, where the finest treasures of the 9 worlds were made. Helheim, the realm of the dead, ruled by the goddess Hel, quiet and gray and final. And Niflheim, realm of primordial ice and mist, where the great serpent Nidhogg gnawed eternally at the deepest root of the tree, trying slowly, endlessly, to bring the whole structure down. A squirrel named Ratatoskr ran up and down the trunk of Yggdrasil constantly, carrying insults back and forth between Nidhogg at the roots and an unnamed eagle that lived in the highest branches. An old rivalry, ancient and pointless, that nonetheless never seemed to end. And deer grazed upon the tender shoots of the tree's highest branches, nibbling endlessly at the very fabric of creation, while 4 stags moved among the branches, feeding on the leaves. The tree held it all together and bore the weight of it all without complaint. Let that weight settle gently around you now, the weight of something ancient holding everything together. Patient, unmoving, breathe, and rest. Now we must speak of Odin himself, not as a distant figure on a throne, but as he truly was, restless, curious, and willing to pay almost any price for wisdom. Odin ruled as the Allfather of the gods in Asgard, husband to Frigg, father to Thor and Baldur and many others. He sat upon a throne called Hlidskjalf, from which he could see into all the 9 worlds at once. He had 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, who flew out across the worlds each day and returned each evening to whisper into his ears everything they had seen. He had 2 wolves, Geri and Freki, who lay at his feet and ate the meat that was set before him. For Odin himself, it was said, needed only wine to sustain him. But for all his power, Odin was never satisfied. He understood something that many in Asgard did not fully grasp. That power without wisdom is brittle. That strength alone cannot hold back the slow grinding approach of fate. That to truly understand the 9 worlds and the threads that bound them together, one needed knowledge, far beyond what even a god naturally possessed. And so Odin went searching for wisdom, wherever it could be found, whatever it cost. He had heard of the well of Mimir, that deep well beneath one of Yggdrasil's great roots, where wisdom itself seemed to pool and gather like water. He traveled there, to the edge of that dark water, and found Mimir, the keeper of the well, an ancient and wise being who guarded its secrets carefully. Odin asked to drink from the well. Mimir looked at him for a long moment. "A drink from this well is not free," Mimir said. "Wisdom never is. What are you willing to give?" Odin considered this question carefully. He did not answer quickly. He understood, perhaps better than any other god, that the most valuable things in existence always demand something of equal weight in return. He offered his eye, not metaphorically, not symbolically, his actual eye, plucked from his own face and dropped into the dark waters of the well, sinking down into the deep ancient pool of accumulated wisdom. The pain of it was immense, but Odin did not cry out. He simply waited. And then Mimir allowed him to drink. What Odin saw in that moment, in that drink from the well of wisdom, is not something easily described in words. It was not a single vision, but an entire understanding of how the 9 worlds connected, of how fate moved through all things like water through a riverbed, of how even the gods themselves were not exempt from the slow turning of destiny. He understood from that day forward that even Asgard would one day fall, that even he, Allfather, king of the gods, would one day face an ending. This knowledge did not break him. It made him more determined. From that day forward, Odin wore a hood pulled low over his missing eye, and walked the 9 worlds not as a king staying safely on his throne, but as a wanderer, always searching, always learning, always trying to understand just a little more. Let that determination settle into you now, the willingness to give something precious for something necessary, the strength found not in avoiding sacrifice, but in choosing it with open eyes. Breathe and rest. But the well of Mimir was not the only sacrifice Odin made in his pursuit of wisdom. There is another story, perhaps the strangest and most profound of all the tales told about him. The story of how Odin hung upon Yggdrasil itself. He sought the secret of the runes. The runes were more than simple letters. In the old understanding, they were fragments of primal knowledge, symbols that held within them the very forces that shaped reality, fate, magic, the underlying patterns of existence itself. No one possessed this knowledge. It existed somehow within the world tree itself, woven into its ancient structure, waiting to be discovered by anyone willing to pay the price required to perceive it. Odin decided he would be the one to find it. He went to Yggdrasil. He pierced himself with his own spear, a wound deliberately given, and he hung himself from the branches of the great tree. He told no one. He sought no help. He gave himself entirely to this trial. For 9 days and 9 nights, he hung there, wounded, without food, without water, without rest, swaying gently in the cold wind that moved through the branches of the world tree, suspended between life and death, between knowing and not knowing. The other gods, when they eventually learned what he had done, did not intervene. Some sacrifices cannot be completed if someone reaches in to shorten them. The full weight of the trial had to be borne completely by Odin alone. He hung there as the sun rose and set 9 times. His body grew weak, his mind grew strange and distant, drifting in that liminal space between the living world and whatever lies beyond it. And on the ninth night, as he hung suspended between worlds, giving everything he had left to give, he saw them, the runes, not as abstract symbols, but as living patterns, glowing faintly in the dark beneath him, embedded in the roots and bark of the tree itself, the deep structural language of existence finally becoming visible to eyes that had been worn down enough, opened wide enough to perceive them. He reached down in his weakened state and took hold of them. He fell from the tree at that moment, the wound and the trial finally complete. And as he fell, he understood the runes, their shapes, their meanings, the magic woven into each one. He had paid for this knowledge with 9 days of suffering and an act of self-sacrifice that even the other gods found difficult to comprehend. But he had gained something that no other being in the 9 worlds possessed: a fundamental understanding of the patterns that held reality together. From this knowledge came spells of healing, spells of protection, the ability to calm storms at sea, to blunt the edge of an enemy's sword, to ease the pain of childbirth, to call upon the dead and ask them questions that only the dead could answer. Odin carried this wisdom back to Asgard and shared parts of it freely with those he trusted, though he kept much of it close, understanding that some knowledge, given too freely, can cause more harm than good. Let the stillness of that 9-day vigil come to you now, the patience required to wait for understanding, the quiet that comes before insight arrives. Breathe and rest. There is one more piece to this story worth knowing: the tale of why Odin valued wisdom so deeply, why he was willing to give an eye, to hang wounded from a tree for 9 days, to wander the 9 worlds disguised as an old traveler in a wide-brimmed hat and a long gray cloak, always asking questions, always listening, always learning. Odin had seen in the wisdom granted to him by Mimir's well something that troubled him deeply. He had seen Ragnarok, the end of days, the final great battle in which the gods themselves, along with the giants and monsters that had always opposed them, would meet in one final catastrophic confrontation. He had seen that he himself, in that final battle, would be swallowed by the great wolf Fenrir, a creature that the gods themselves had raised, and then, fearing its growing strength, bound in chains forged by the dwarves from impossible materials. The sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spit of a bird, things that do not exist, woven into a chain that should not have been able to exist either, and yet did. He knew that the wolf, despite this binding, would eventually break free, on the day the world itself began to end, and that in the chaos of that final battle, the wolf would find him and swallow him whole. Knowing this, truly knowing, with the deep, unshakable certainty that only the wisdom of Mimir's well could provide, Odin did not despair. He did not retreat from his throne and refuse to act. Instead, he spent the long years before that distant ending gathering wisdom, gathering allies, preparing his people as best he could for what was to come. He created Valhalla, a great hall where warriors who died bravely in battle could be gathered, trained, and prepared, so that on the day of Ragnarok, they might stand beside the gods in that final fight. He sent his ravens out daily, not merely from curiosity, but from necessity. A king who knows his ending is coming gathers every piece of information he can, hoping that knowledge, even knowledge of an unavoidable fate, can still be used wisely. This is perhaps the deepest truth at the center of Odin's story. He was not a god who believed himself invincible. He was not a god who pretended that endings could not come for him. He was a god who looked directly at his own fate, accepted its weight without flinching, and chose to spend his remaining time preparing, learning, and doing what good he could rather than turning away from a truth too heavy to easily carry. There is something deeply human in this, despite Odin being, by every definition, entirely divine. We too live with endings we cannot fully see, but somehow sense are coming. We too must decide each day whether to turn away from that knowledge or to let it deepen our appreciation for the time we do have. We too must decide what wisdom is worth seeking, even when the cost of seeking it is real and significant. Let that quiet courage settle into you now. The courage to look at what is difficult without turning away, and to keep going anyway. Breathe and rest. The story of Yggdrasil does not end with Odin's sacrifices. The tree itself continued, century after century, holding the 9 worlds together, weathering storms both literal and cosmic, enduring the endless gnawing of Nidhogg at its roots, the eternal running of Ratatoskr along its trunk, the grazing of deer and stags among its highest branches. The 3 Norns continued their work at the Well of Urd, weaving the threads of fate for every being in every realm, gods, giants, humans, and all the rest. They watered the roots of Yggdrasil daily with water and white clay from the well, ensuring that the tree, despite everything working against it, continued to stand. There is a particular comfort in this image if you let yourself sit with it. A tree so vast, it holds entire worlds, tended even in the face of decay and gnawing, and the slow approach of an ending everyone already knows is coming, by patient hands that simply keep doing the necessary work, day after day, without complaint. The Norns did not weave perfect threads. Fate, even in the Old Norse understanding, was not always kind. But they wove anyway. They tended the well anyway. They watered the roots anyway, because the alternative, letting the tree fall, letting the 9 worlds drift apart into the void from which they had first emerged, was unthinkable. Sometimes the most important work we do is simply this: tending to what holds our world together, even when we know somewhere beneath the surface that nothing lasts forever, even when we understand that endings come for everyone and everything eventually. We tend the roots anyway. We water what needs watering. We do the quiet, necessary work, day after day, not because we believe it will prevent every ending, but because the tending itself has value, regardless of what comes after. Odin understood this. It is why he never stopped wandering, never stopped learning, never stopped preparing, even knowing what waited for him at the end of all his efforts. And there is a strange comfort, too, in knowing that even gods, even the wisest, most powerful beings in the old stories, faced uncertainty, faced loss, faced the slow approach of things they could not fully prevent, and found in that uncertainty not an excuse to stop caring, but a reason to care more deeply about the time they had. The wind moves through Yggdrasil's branches even now, in the quiet of this story, in the space between waking and sleep. The Norns continue their weaving. The well continues to hold its dark, deep wisdom. The 9 worlds continue to hang, suspended, held together by roots that reach down into places we cannot fully see. And far above, in his hall in Asgard, the Allfather watches, one eye closed forever in sacrifice, the other still searching, still learning, still preparing for whatever comes next. This is how the old stories end, and how they continue. Not with a final tidy resolution, but with the quiet sense that the world keeps turning, the tree keeps standing, and the work of tending what matters never truly finishes. It simply continues, patiently, quietly, the way all the most important things do. And now, it is very late. The story is finished. Yggdrasil stands quiet in the dark, its branches swaying gently in a cold northern wind. The Norns rest beside their well. The ravens have returned to Odin's shoulders, their day's gathering of knowledge complete. And you, here, in this moment, in this warmth, in this quiet that comes at the end of a long story. You are safe. You are held, the way the 9 worlds are held, by something larger than yourself, something ancient and patient and unwilling to let go. Your body is heavy now. Your breath has slowed. The thoughts that were moving through you earlier tonight have drifted away, like ravens returning home at dusk, like leaves settling after a long wind. There is nothing left to carry, nothing left to figure out, nothing left to hold on to except this slow, steady breath. In and out, in and out. The tree stands. The well is deep and quiet. The 9 worlds rest in their branches, suspended gently in the dark. And you rest too, exactly as you are, exactly where you need to be. Good night.